Greetings and welcome to Harvard's 374th commencement, the most joyful day on the university's calendar. I'm Jackie O'Neill, and for over a decade, I served as the university marshal. And in that role, I was privileged to work alongside a dedicated group of faculty, staff, and volunteers to help make commencement happen, and to be witness to some many magical moments. Joining me today is my longtime colleague and forever friend, Jack Megan, with whom I've collaborated on many university events, including our annual commencements.
Thank you, Jackie, and good morning, everybody. Greetings from Harvard. We are seated in Tercentenary Theater, which is also known as the New Yard. It's a lot easier to say the New Yard than Tercentenary Theater.
That's for sure.
And we are situated between Widener Library and Memorial Church. And crowds are beginning to fill up. We're expecting close to 30,000 people today, including our soon-to-be graduates, but also faculty and friends and family. It's just a tremendous celebration, and we're so glad that you can join us today. These festival rites, as they were called over the years, and still are called, are the only moment in the academic year when everybody from across the university, all the different graduate schools as well as the college, come together, of course, to celebrate these degree candidates. It's a very special day. It's filled with tradition, and there's a sort of palpable sense of excitement here today. Even though it's a little cloudy overhead, we're not expecting any rain, so we're remaining very hopeful. We want to begin, though, by acknowledging you, our audience. We're very aware that wherever you are, whether you are right here in the Boston area watching this broadcast or somewhere far away around the world, we know that these are your sons and daughters, people you love, your friends, people who are dear to you. And we know that they would not be here save for the support that you gave them, the patience, the love, the steadfastness, and the sacrifice. So this is their day, but it's also your day too. So we want to congratulate you. We want to tell you that you make this day possible, and we're grateful to you. And we're glad you're here today. So Jackie, over to you.
Thank you, Jack. For sure, celebrations like this really do serve to unite us, to give us a way to express our gratitude to our institutions and to each other, and to remind us of our shared values. The memories and friendships that we make here are, for many, the bonds that keep people connected for a lifetime. So let's start with a little bit of history. Harvard was founded in 1636, and it's now 388 years old. But this is only the 374th commencement, so why this disparity? Well, Harvard's first commencement took place in 1642, years after its founding in 1636. It was a modest affair consisting of only 9 graduates, and in the next few years, there weren't enough qualified students and no commencements. During the American Revolution, Harvard was used as an encampment for George Washington and his troops, and the college was moved from Cambridge to Concord, 17 miles west.
Concord, by the way, was founded 1 year earlier, 1635. So that's one thing Concord has on
And you
on
know
Harvard.
That because?
I know that probably because
you live there.
Yeah, I was going to say,
because you live there.
Because you told me, as you told me everything else, Jackie.
Right. In the 1700s, a smallpox epidemic and then later a plague forced the college to close, as did the 7 Years' War, also known as the French and Indian War, both conducted on American soil. And all of these events taken together made such celebrations seem inappropriate. World War II also disrupted traditional commencements. And then, of course, came COVID, where Harvard was forced to cancel commencement twice. So, as the poet Robert Burns once wrote, the best laid schemes of mice and men gang after gley, meaning often go awry. Do we know this? We know this.
We know this.
Right.
I did not know Gang After Glay. It sounds like a band. But in any case, I'm impressed that you said it. But you fast forward to today, and we have about 9,000 candidates standing for degrees. You can hear them all right across the yard right now, probably in the background as we speak. And the university as a whole is, of course, so much bigger. There are 25,000 students in all across all of the schools, the graduate schools, the college, and so on. And as a faculty, it's about 2,500 faculty teaching at Harvard across the schools. And then there are our alumni, many, I'm sure, who are watching this broadcast, and greetings to you, alumni. There are 400,000 of you spread around the globe, a remarkable figure. And then to top all of that, as if that was not enough, there are 35 million online learners who study through Harvard. So it's quite remarkable, this crowd, and it's a far cry from where we were in 1642 with just 9 graduates. So we want to just transition now. We're going to bring in a guest. I'm going to slide a little to the left here. And I think I'm still in the picture.
Look
I
who's
am. We are really delighted if we can get her in the camera shot. There she is,
Okay,
Josie.
slide.
Hi, guys.
Josie
Hi.
Hesbo, welcome. We're so glad
thank
you're
you
here.
so much.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Josie. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Are you excited?
Very excited. What a wonderful day. It's been a ride the last couple of days, but
Yeah.
this is really special.
We're thrilled to hear. So, folks, Josie Hesbo is an economics and psychology concentrator here at Harvard University. She's a resident of Dunster House. Is that right?
Yeah,
Is
that's
Dunster House the best
right.
house?
That is right.
I've actually heard that Lowell House is the best house.
Oh, no. Not now.
Where that from?
That's where it couldn't have been a credible source. But in addition to being a scholar, Josie is also the captain of the women's soccer team and was the first woman from the Harvard women's soccer team to play on her World Cup team, the FIFA World Cup, in 2023. Is that right?
That's right.
Representing her country, Denmark. Josie, I can't imagine how you did all this. And we want to just begin before we start peppering you with questions by saying how really happy we are not only to have you here, but for you. This is a big moment in your life. How's it feel?
Incredible. I think it's really hard to put into words right now, just because you're processing.
Of course.
I think I'll even realize how much I've learned from this experience post Harvard. But I feel really, really honored and just so grateful.
Do you have family here today?
Yes, my parents are in town, which is incredible and just so nice to share these beautiful experiences with them.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about your family because there's a story that I read about you which is really interesting. You know, some people are lucky, like you, to find their passion early on in life. And so the story that I read was that you convinced your parents to allow you to ride on a bus for an hour and a half each way so that you could join the only girls' soccer team that was available, an hour and a half away. And you made a promise to them that if they let you do it, that you would study hard on the bus. Well, obviously, you fulfilled that part of the promise. But fill in the details there. How many years did you do that? And how old were you when you got on your first bus ride?
So yeah, it's right. So I was 12 when I started playing football when I was 7 in my local team. And then when I was 12, I one day get into my parents in the kitchen and they sit there, and at that point, it felt that I had to take another push in order to progress my development. Right. So taking this bus 90 minutes away was the necessary, let's say, step in order to achieve that. So I said to my parents if that would be possible, and they were quite hesitant in the beginning. But then I said, "Are you going to prevent me from making the national team?" I really had to dig deep. But
you knew that at that age.
You
that
had
you
your
had a
sights
shot.
set.
So that's at least how the story goes. And ultimately, I've been so fortunate to have their support by my side. But it started out that, Josie, you can get a season, and then when the winter hit, you don't want to take the bus back and forth in the dark. But I played there for 5 years, and
wow,
it was such an important milestone in my little career, so to say, at that point.
Josie, are you recruited to the team? I mean, at that age, how did this opportunity become available to you?
So it was two of my friends who was planning to go there because they knew that this team were selecting these girls to become part of the youth national team. And I think it's really important when you realize, and as you said, Jackie, I've been so fortunate to find my passion very early on. And it's natural then to keep wanting more.
Yes.
And this next step, it was really uncomfortable, right? Because you come into a new environment and it's hard with change. And that was the same when I came here to Harvard the first year. But you also realize how much growth that you can gain from that.
Yes, right. So what did bring you here to Harvard?
So Mike Calise, my assistant head coach, brought me here. I got recruited when I was 15 in Dallas.
Wow.
15.
So with that club that I traveled to 90 minutes, they had this friendly tournament in Dallas. And we went there. I remember my mom, it was a quite expensive trip, so she was like, okay, Josie, let's call it an investment in a little bit of a fun. Rightly enough, so I got back and then woke up jet lagged 2 days afterwards, looked at my email, and then I got this one only email from Mike, the head coach, head assistant coach of Harvard Women's Soccer.
And there you have it,
Wow, what a story. So I think I have a question about just sort of how you balanced everything. I mean, you're a double concentrator.
Yeah.
You're in very serious academic disciplines. You are also on the field every day for hours every day, and I'm sure it also occupies your mind even when you're not there. So how do you do that? What are the challenges of being a scholar athlete? You know, it's funny, scholar athlete is a term that I think some people might be cynical about over the years as sports has changed and become more professional on the college level. But here, we do have scholar athletes, and you're one of them.
I'm not the only one.
I believe it. So how do you balance that?
I think there's a practical side to it. I maybe should dedicate a thank you to Google Task, my notes on my phone. And ultimately, there's a huge kind of anticipation in terms of my planning and my schedule in order to balance the national team commitment too and travel back and forth. But you can't do everything by yourself, right? It's very much about asking for help. And I've been so fortunate to get that support from my coaching staff, both in Denmark and here at Harvard, and my parents. So that's ultimately an integral ingredient of it. But I also think that it's possible to keep up this energy when you feel grateful.
Yes. And you're also the captain of the team, so that comes with a layer of responsibility. Tell us about that. What does it mean to be the captain of a team?
It's such an honor, but I'm not doing it by myself again. I have two wonderful co-captains, Jade and Sydney, and it's been such a fun challenge to lead the team, and especially in adversity. In tough times where we've, last season especially, had so many injuries. And trying to keep finding the joy and keep finding the belief that we can do it. We can still do it. We can still show up this next weekend, and we got this. Because we're together.
Right.
I think that is it's really cool to be now here in a position to be able to bring these feelings out on a team. But I also want to say that's not how it was when I got here at Harvard. It's definitely been a transition, and I've grown so much.
And what about the World Cup? You have to tell us about that.
What's it like to play on the FIFA World Cup stage?
Wow.
It's still mind blown. I feel like it's 2 years ago by now, but being able to step in on the field, there's 78,000 people in the stands. You're there representing your country. That's the biggest milestone ultimately in my career. And just hopefully a glimpse of hopefully what's to come. But I mean, ultimately such a big honor and something that is a result of many, many years of work.
And what is yet to come?
Professional soccer. That's part of it. And then I really hope to pursue my passion for entrepreneurship and soccer in combination with those, because as you know, sports is so powerful. And I really believe and hope that soccer can be used to create even more beautiful opportunities for kids to learn these life skills of teamwork, resilience, discipline, that you gain through sports and what I've gained through being part of Harvard athletics.
Josie, I have to say, Jackie and I have had the privilege of working at Harvard University for quite a number of years. If you ever wonder whether it's fun to work with students like this, who are so aspirational,
it's wonderful,
and who are such good people at heart.
Right.
I feel like you kind of embody the values that we hope, in terms of goodwill, hard effort, setting goals, and trying to treat people well as well, which I know as a captain of the team is part of it. As a leader, you have to think about, I would imagine, the atmosphere you create for people to grow.
We are going to follow your career with great interest, and we wish you all the best, Josie. You're a fabulous young woman.
Congratulations, Josie.
I appreciate that so much.
Okay, have a great day today.
Good luck. Have a blast today. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So everyone, we're going to take a moment and just look around Harvard Yard and see what's going on. So you can see right now, out in the old yard, as it's called, there's the John Harvard statue, and the students from Harvard College are beginning to line up. The sort of drill here at Harvard is that students come from all the different schools. They come marching across from the School of Education, the School of Design, the JFK School of Government, and so on. And as they come onto the campus, they congregate in certain places and start to fill the yard. So here in the old yard, you can see the undergraduates. And Jackie, I have to just remark on one thing.
Go right ahead, Jack.
Yeah.
I've never stopped you. Go ahead.
So Jackie, as the university marshal, used to assign people like me to this role called marshal's aide. Now, as you look at this picture, you can see people lining up, and it's going to get bigger and bigger until pretty soon it's a sea of undergraduates. The marshal's aides, their job is to get them in order and get them into the yard in a straight line. And all I can say is good luck with that. And Jackie, thank you for giving me that opportunity. So anyway, it's an exciting day, and we'll cut back and forth between the yard as we go. But for now, we're going to bring you back here because we have another guest named Brandon Moore, and we're really delighted to have you here, Brandon. And Jackie, I'm going to let you do the introduction.
So excited to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
It's a big day for you.
It is. It's an exciting day. It is.
Do you have family here?
I do. I'm joined by my parents, Bruce and Tammy, and my husband, Mike. They came up from Connecticut. Wasn't the longest commute from France, but they're the most important people in my life, and I'd want to share it with nobody else.
Well, it's a great day, not just for you, but for everybody who helped get you here.
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
For sure. Well, I want to say a little bit about you so that the audience will know. You are a joint degree candidate from the Kennedy School of Government. I graduated from there.
That's right.
And the Harvard Business School.
That's correct.
So that's a pretty daunting academic career for you right there. And you were also a West Point graduate.
That's correct.
And also you served on an Apache helicopter in Afghanistan doing medical evacuation work. Is that right?
I did, yeah. We did a variety of different missions.
Yes.
We did support medevac when I flew Apaches, but it was a really formative period of my life.
Yeah, I'll bet. I bet you saw a lot and learned a lot from that experience. You are also, to add on, the recipient of a Pat Tillman Foundation Award and a fellow at the Center for Public Leadership at the Kennedy School.
Yep, that's it.
So that's a lot. How old are you?
I've been busy. I'm turning 35 shortly. It's not showing too much.
Oh, gosh.
I don't see any lines yet.
That's good, yeah.
Well, what I see from all of that is that you clearly have a passion and are dedicated to public service. So let's talk a little bit about that. What was your inspiration from the get-go? Was there a person? Was there a moment? Why that?
So I'd say there are two things. One, my parents were incredibly hardworking growing up. I'm the first in my family to get a college degree. My father was a carpenter. My mom worked on financial reporting for an insurance company. They worked very hard. What they taught me is that hard work and sort of paying back to your community, it's not about titles, it's not about prestige, it's about making sure you're doing the right thing.
Yes.
And I was also raised as a child in the era of 9/11, and I was in 6th grade, and I remember it vividly.
Yes, of course.
I knew after what had happened on 9/11 that I needed to do something, and I wanted to dedicate my life to public service.
Yeah, it's a great answer.
It's a great, you went on to West Point as an undergraduate. And then when I think about what you've done, I mean, it's one thing to dedicate your life to service. It's another thing to put your life on the line, which you did. which takes incredible courage. I don't know that I would have that kind of courage. Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's really about standing up for the folks on your left and your right, the men and the women serving in uniform that are willing to sacrifice their lives. There's a camaraderie that you just can't find anywhere else outside of the armed forces. And I learned a lot while I've been in grad school at Harvard, but I think I probably learned more in terms of the person that I've become from my time in service. And there's also something to be said about the mission that we had. We were overseas fighting for democracy. We were fighting for women's rights. We were fighting for infrastructure and education, things that are American ideals that are nonpartisan, and they are important everywhere. And that's what I was fighting for.
That's wonderful.
You know about the new politics.
Okay. I can ask about that.
Right. Well, when you said nonpartisan, I know that you're involved in something called New Politics. Explain what that is and why it's interesting to you.
It's an incredible organization. Emily Cherniak is the head of New Politics, and they support folks from service backgrounds that are running for office. Anything from local city council all the way up to the U.S. Senate. A lot of veterans, but also folks that are former firefighters or police officers or teachers. And it's so important to have folks that are service-minded, serving in elected office across the country at all levels. New Politics champions that work, and I really couldn't be more proud to be part of the organization.
You know, I have to say, I read the mission statement in preparation for this interview, and there was a word, it's a mashup word, humbition. Combination of humility and ambition.
Absolutely.
Speak about that, because that is, if you can do it, a very important quality to have as a leader.
Absolutely. So the Army taught me more times than I'd probably like to say that it's important to realize when you walk into a room, walk in with the default assumption that you are not the smartest person in the room. There's so much to learn from people. People that are more junior than you, absolutely. People that are more senior than you. And of course, being here at graduate school, I certainly wasn't the smartest person in the room. So humility is critical. But you also have to have that drive, that focus to achieve progress in the realm that you're hoping to achieve progress. So humbition is a pretty good way to articulate that.
I love that word.
Brandon, I'm going way off script here, folks.
Big surprise.
Big surprise. But I mean, what you're doing is so remarkable with your life. Here you are getting a degree in public service. Well, not public service, but public policy through the Kennedy School. An MBA. You've served the country. And I just think, when you write your story, this is a strange question to ask someone who's only in their 30s, because obviously I'm in my late 30s, so it feels distant. But what do you want to say about what your life will mean? If you think like 20 years from now, what would you want people to say about you?
I think what's most important is I want to be seen as trustworthy, as honest, and truly dedicated to making progress for folks, whether it's working on making housing more affordable, whether it's lowering energy costs, whether it's investing in education, protecting women's rights. There are so many important issues out there. You can't fix them all, but I'm going to do everything I can to try. And what's most important to me is I don't really care what the big names are out there that might say about me, what politicians or you know, people with a lot of privilege might say. I care about what just the regular everyday folks say and how I can improve their lives. That's really what would mean the most to me as I pursue my career.
What about the business school? What did you learn from the business school that you can apply to your public service dedication?
Everything. There isn't a problem that we face as a country that doesn't require public-private integration in some way. You look at climate change. We need private sector innovation. We need public sector regulation. There are so many issues out there that require this sort of working together between the public and the private sector. What I learned at the business school is you've got a lot of smart folks. You've got a lot of folks that are really dedicated to doing good in the world in the private sector. We have to partner with them as public sector leaders to make sure that we can achieve progress at scale across the country. It's just absolutely critical.
So one question you can answer or not. Is elective office in your future, perhaps?
So I definitely want to serve in state government. I don't know in what capacity yet. In the current state of affairs in United States politics, federal policy is a little bit dysfunctional right now. I think that's fair to say. So the state governments have inherited such a critical role for policy making, and it's across the board. Again, whether we're talking education, housing, clean energy, all of it. Connecticut was one of the first states. It was the first state in the country to pass a safe haven law after the Dobbs decision to protect women's reproductive rights. That's something I'm incredibly proud of. So I do intend on serving in state government, whether it's as staff or one day down the road, potentially in another position, to be determined.
You know, there is the Bloomberg Government Innovation Program, which is also a joint Kennedy School Business School initiative. Did you have any engagement with any of that? Because that's about the mayors. And the mayors, like you say, local, that's where it's happening. That's where the energy is.
There's nothing political about making sure the snow's getting plowed and the trash is getting picked up. Bloomberg's incredible. The Taubman Center for State and Local Government at the Kennedy School did a lot of work with them as well. They really have such an incredible mission, and local politics is so important. I was privileged to be able to lead a conversation with bipartisan leaders regarding getting young folks interested in pursuing elected office. And that's a really great way to break into that, is in your local community. Join your school board, join city council, join planning and zoning commission. It gets you involved in your community, making a positive impact.
Brandon, you have such good energy. I'm so excited for you. I'm going to follow your career.
Absolutely. I think
seriously.
we both want to have your email after this so we can stay in touch. You know, it really strikes me, Brandon, and I'll say this to our audience, the mission of Harvard College, which is one of the schools, is to educate citizens and citizen leaders for society.
Yes.
And that is, you are sort of the embodiment of that.
You are.
And I think, you know, at a time when the world needs people who really care deeply about our impact on one another, about climate, about healthcare, about all the basic human
things
needs.
You mentioned.
All the things that
all
Brandon
the things
needs.
you mentioned.
We need really educated citizens who come in with a set of skills and the kind of ideals that you embody. I've often heard it said, it's Dean Carano of Harvard College will say, our aspirations run ahead of our actualities, except he says it better than that. But the point is that you reach. You try to get, and you are really embodiment. And I want to point out for everybody the stole that Brandon's wearing, which says Harvard Veterans. Brandon, thank you for your service to the country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all you're going to do.
May the force be with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
May the force be with you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
See you later.
Have a great day with your family.
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah, terrific. So we're going to go back to the yard for a moment and take a peek around and see what's there. As you can see, well, Harvard Yard itself is gradually filling. This is that point where if you are the commencement director, Stephen Magro, right now you're saying, where are they all? I sure hope that they'll get to the yard soon. And just looking around the yard, let's see if we could go to the Harvard Band, which I believe is on camera 1. It's just wonderful to see all these students who come together to mark this moment. And they're up on your screen right now. The Harvard Band is led by Mark Olson. Mark is the director of bands at Harvard University. And I'm telling you, I'm not a band person. And Jackie, I don't know if you're a band person.
I'm a band person.
But when you hear them play, it's just energizing.
It is.
It's just fantastic. And behind them, you can see the empty seats, which is where the university choir will sit. The commencement choir, actually, we call it, which will be directed by Ed Jones. Ed is the university choral director at Memorial Church, and by Andrew Clark, the director of the Harvard choruses. So it should be a splendid day out there, and we're really looking forward to seeing it all unfold as we continue down. But for the moment, we're going to turn now to look ahead at commencement and what's coming up. And you know, we discussed the arts with Josie. I mean, we discussed sports with Josie. And I was an arts director at this university, so darn it, we're going to get the arts in
23 years.
23
years. And you made a major
She worked
contribution.
me to the bone.
I did. I loved every minute of it.
Anyway, folks, the arts are a very big part of the Harvard experience, and they are also a huge part of Harvard commencement. Just thinking generally about the arts at Harvard before we turn to commencement, out of Harvard's undergraduate student body of over 7,000 students, approximately 3,000 of them, 40%, participate in the arts. And this is across all disciplines, theater, dance, music, and so on, visual art, film. It's an extraordinary, rich, and collaborative environment. And with students from all around the globe, it really makes for a a really vibrant, diverse scene in the sense of the kinds of art you experience. So it's quite exciting. The art continues in the graduate schools, the Graduate School of Design, the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and even in some places that one might not think of as being affiliated with art.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, Jackie, of the Harvard Medical School.
Right.
The Harvard Medical School has a program on arts and humanities, which looks at the connection between close listening, looking closely, reading subtext, all the things one does in the arts, and clinical care. A pretty unusual thing, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there are also a number of other developments that are worth mentioning. Harvard's art museums have been renovated. They're free to the public. We encourage you to come. They're extraordinary. The American Repertory Theater is building a new home in Alston. And of course, I have to give a huge shout out to the central cog that makes it all happen. You knew I was going to do this, Jackie.
Yeah, of course.
The Office for the Arts at Harvard. The Office for the Arts at Harvard is a central resource that supports every artist, regardless of discipline. And they do this with fellowships and grants and so many other things. They're led by Fiona Coffey, and I can't say enough about the work they do and the impact they have on students. The funny thing about Harvard is that many of these artists are, in fact, doing other things. They're pre-med students, or they are working in science or in computer technology and so on. And so it makes really for an amazing experience to go hear the Harvard Radcliffe Orchestra and discover that it is a top-flight conservatory orchestra, but it's made up of pre-med students. You know, your future cardiologist is somewhere in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about STEM concentrations at Harvard, but that's not to say that the people who are doing STEM work aren't also musicians and performers and interested in theater.
Yeah.
And so they're not just narrowly focused on science. They enjoy all of the things that Harvard has to offer, having to do with the arts, which is great.
Indeed, indeed, our commencement speaker today, Abraham Verghese, is not only a doctor and a scientist in his own right, but he is also an author, a scholar, a writer, whose book, The Covenant of Water, is perhaps familiar to many of you out there. So having told you a little bit about the arts at Harvard, we'll mention now a bit about how the arts are involved in commencement. One of the ways in which Harvard celebrates the arts is by bestowing honorary degrees on distinguished artists. And over the years, the list reads like a who's who. Writers Joan Didion, Chinua Achebe, Margaret Atwood, Toni Morrison, musical artists like Seiji Ozawa, Harvard's own Yo-Yo Ma, Ravi Shankar, just kind of extraordinary people who come to Harvard to be honored. And I could go on, Meryl Streep and Anna Devere Smith and Steven Spielberg.
Go on.
I could talk on. Okay, I'm an arts guy. So,
for sure.
The point of all this, ladies and gentlemen, and all of you out there, is that the arts are very much alive at Harvard and are very much reflected in the commencement. And we try to make moments during commencement that actually celebrate or honor someone. And in some way, we try to do this through the arts, a performative moment.
Yeah.
Jackie, you and I have some pretty memorable moments over the years. I remember Wynton Marsalis, when Wynton Marsalis, the trumpet player and director of Lincoln Center Jazz, when Wynton received his honorary degree, he led out the recessional with his trumpet like a second line. It was that full feeling of everyone falling in behind him while he played his trumpet. Another occasion that comes to mind is when Aretha Franklin received an honorary degree, and she sat at the piano and played the Star Spangled Banner. And you know, everyone puts their mark on the Star Spangled Banner, but there is nobody like Aretha.
No.
So those are two that particularly strike me, Jackie.
Yes, for sure.
How about for you?
Oh, Aretha Franklin. I will never forget Aretha Franklin. There's a long story that goes with that, but I will just say that when we asked her to perform, which we don't usually do for people receiving honorary degrees, she said that she would. She needed a baby grand piano on the stage. That was a lift, but we did it.
I remember that.
And she wanted to sing My Country 'Tis of Thee.
Yeah.
And we said, fine, that's a patriotic song. But when the moment came and we were looking out at the 30,000 people in the yard and ready to start, I approached her to give her her cue and say, Miss Franklin, we're about to start, and when I give you the cue, there's the piano, and you'll do My Country 'Tis of Thee." And she looked me right in the face, and she said, "I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that." And I thought my heart was going to stop, because I had no idea what she meant by "I'm not doing that." I'm thinking to myself, I don't have an opening act here. But, she looked around, she saw the magnitude of the moment, she saw the other people on the stage that were receiving honorary degrees, and she just decided, I'm going to do the national anthem.
It was remarkable.
And it was by far the best rendition of the national anthem I have ever heard. And she got a standing ovation. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's actually true.
It's true professional.
People don't usually stand. They are standing for the moment, but they.
She got a standing ovation.
It was very, very memorable.
Well, I remember that moment, but I also remember in 2012 when John Lewis got his honorary degree. You remember that?
Congressman John Lewis.
And we all know that John Lewis was a fierce advocate for civil rights. At the age of 25, he led the first Selma to Montgomery March across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And it was intended to be a peaceful protest, but as you probably all remember, he and others were viciously attacked and sustained some really serious injuries. But undeterred, he spent his lifetime working for his just cause and earning the name Conscience of the Congress. A remarkable human being, really.
It was amazing when he was here.
And to honor him, you remember, Jack, that you helped organize a group of undergraduates who performed an original student composition by Joshua Campbell, who was one of our students, called Sing Out, March On. And we'd like to share that moment with you. Do we have the video?
Well, I marched through the storm, and I marched through the rain, and I marched through some sickness and some heartache and pain. And I laid on the ground, and I looked up at the sky, and I prayed to the Lord up above and asked why. But oh no, I'm not tired, I'm not through marching yet, and I'm a-marching till I die. Oh children, this you can bet. So we say, I'm gonna sing out, and I'm gonna march on. And everybody said, I'm gonna sing out, gonna march on, I'm gonna march on, gonna put one foot in front of the other foot. Yes, I am. I'm gonna sing out, gonna march on, I'm gonna march on. I got to keep on keeping on. Yes, I have. Gonna march on. I'm gonna march on. Oh well, my grandmama marched, and my granddaddy too. And I never thought it'd be something that I have to do. But I'll march if I must. I got a mission, you see. And I'll be damned if my children have to march for me. Now I believe in the power of raising my voice, and I believe in the power of making some noise. Now if I die, I can't sing, and if I can't sing, I'll die. So we should sing for one another. Now let's give it a try. So we'll say, I'm
extraordinary honor for both the students and John Lewis himself. What a beautiful, beautiful tribute to him.
I was only 18 when I...
That was such a special moment, such a memorable moment for those of us who were there. And I think the thing I remember the most, Jackie, in addition to the song, was the moment when they all gestured to Congressman Lewis that their thought, which was intuitive, they weren't instructed to do so, was not to bow, but instead to gesture to the congressman. Really moving, very memorable. And I can hear outside the tent right now the clappers from the School of Public Health. The School of Public Health, all of these students bring different objects to make noise with or to signal what school they're from. The School of Public Health, for some reason, brings clappers, and you can probably hear that in the background, and now you hear the band. But while we're hearing all that, we want to transition now. We have a special guest, and
we do.
I'm going to let Jackie, I'm going to let you introduce.
Hello, Ginny.
Hi, Jackie.
How are you?
Hi, Ginny.
So we invited you to come and share some of the historic items that are associated with commencement. And to explain the provenance and the use of these items, we've invited you to come and talk a little bit. But I do want to say kudos to the Harvard Archives. You have an endless array of fascinating objects and documents there. And you're open to the public. You share your resources with everybody. And you also serve as an important resource for scholars and school children. So I just want to say you're generous, and it's wonderful to have you here. So what do you want to tell us?
Well, I want to thank you for having me. This has been great. I'm really excited to talk about the archives and all the regalia that relates to it historically. I want to let people know that we are open to the public and that we do have an exhibition area that's open for people to come see some of these things.
So, terrific.
I think the first thing we want to talk about is the Harvard seal. It's the Veritas seal. You'll see it all over the place on our flags, on our T-shirts, and this seal is really interesting because it's old. It is from 1643, and this is an image up on the screen right now showing it in the records of the Board of Overseers. Now, what is interesting about the seal is that it was actually forgotten for 200 years. So they drew the seal, they made a proclamation about the seal being the seal of Harvard, and then forgot about it. So 200 years later, we had Josiah Quincy come along. He was the president during Harvard's 200th anniversary. He discovers the seal 200 years later in the records, and he says, well, this is going to be our seal. And then it appears on banners, and the rest is sort of history.
Yeah,
amazing.
That's terrific.
Do we have an image of the seal that we can bring up?
You can see the seal in the banners.
Terrific.
It's kind of amazing that it was conceived of in the 1640s. And then forgotten. And it stuck, but everyone forgot about it for a couple hundred years.
And it has changed over time, but it has the same sort of three-book of images, the Veritas symbol over and over and over again.
You're reminding me about forgotten items. The law school just discovered an original copy of the Magna Carta, which they thought was just a Xerox copy. They bought it for $27.50.
I love that story.
It's unreal.
I not wait to see it in person.
So everyone, the message here, the lesson is, check your attic. You might have a Magna Carta up there.
So what's next, Ginny?
So I think the next thing we want to talk about is the Marshal's baton, and a lot of people use a lot of different words to describe it, the mace or the scepter, but it's actually called the Marshal's baton. And Jackie, you could probably talk about it better than I could.
I did. And I asked you to put that up next to the Yale. They don't call it a baton, they call it a scepter. But I thought it would be interesting to show first the very plain, harkening back to our Puritan roots, unadorned seal with a little bit of silver, nothing fancy. And then we see, I think, the Yale
the
scepter.
Yale baton. So the Yale
There it
baton
is.
much more
Okay.
elaborate.
Yale
We
has-
love our fitting of a coronation.
We love to poke fun, okay, at Yale. That thing looks like something that the King of England would carry,
well, yeah,
right?
and it's huge. Look
Right.
how much bigger it is.
It's huge, and it weighs 24 pounds,
Yep.
and it's like 48 inches long,
Yep.
whereas the baton, as you call it, that I carried was about this
Pretty
big,
compact.
lightweight, and much easier to carry than that.
You know, a little known
yes.
fact is that the marshal of Yale University actually dislocated her shoulder carrying out that
Oh
baton
my
back
gosh.
in the day.
Yeah, I
I love
believe it. Having seen a photo of it now.
Yeah, it says less is better.
Yeah.
Yes, right, for sure.
So I think moving on from the baton, we're going to move to the president's robes.
Yes.
The president's robes are unique and also have a lot of history. So in what you should be seeing now on your screens is a portrait of Drew Gilpin Faust. She's Harvard's 28th president, and she is wearing the robes of the president.
Right.
So in the robes, you've got two pieces. One is a sort of underrobe with big billowing sleeves,
Right.
and the other is this sort of overrobe or cassock. And they are supposed to be worn together, but sometimes if it's hot or
Right.
someone doesn't want to wear both, they don't have to. Some of the things that are really interesting about them is that this is a robe based on early Puritan,
Yes.
like sort of clerical
Ministerial,
wear. Very
right, yes,
ministerial,
right.
very ministerial. It's made of lightweight wool. It has a lot of velvet sort of stitching on the front, but otherwise
Right.
completely unadorned.
Right. Another less is better.
Another less is
Right.
better. And traditionally, up until about 35 years ago, the president also wore a little cap.
Right.
And then over the years, we've seen that disappear as
Right,
well.
right.
One thing we do know is that the robe has been around at least back to the 1800s
Yeah.
because we have photographs
Right.
of presidents wearing
Right.
the
Yeah.
robes.
Right.
And one fun fact I think is that they recycle the robes. So each president doesn't
Yes.
always get their own robe.
They get hand-me-downs.
They get a hand-me-down and then it gets retailored. So
Right.
I think today that the president is wearing Larry Bacco's old robes,
Right.
and they've been tailored to his size.
Well, one thing that hasn't disappeared is the infamous president's chair. Do you want
No.
to talk about that?
Yes. So
Okay.
the president's chair is probably the oldest item that we'll see today. And the president's chair is sort of symbolic of the Harvard presidency. And if you watch people go on stage, you may have had a glimpse of it where you
Yes.
see the chair.
Yep.
So it's about 450 years
Wow.
old.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
It came from Europe. It's made of European ash mostly. And what's nice is I do see that we have a close-up here, and you can look at the bottom and see that there's a fin across the bottom. That's
Yes.
not original to the chair.
Aha.
The chair is really, really uncomfortable, and also prior to the addition of that fin, would topple over. So I'm imagining previous presidential inaugurations or ceremonies where perhaps a president has fallen over and somebody finally got the right idea and said put the fin in the back
Right.
to make it sort of more sturdy.
Right.
So the chair also has a cushion that goes on it that was made by President Bach's mother because it is so
Oh,
uncomfortable.
that's great.
I know.
Yeah,
The
and it-
mother of the
Leave it
president,
to
after
mother.
hundreds of years,
Right.
says, I'm going
Right.
to just put a cushion on this steer.
Yes, right.
And I
That's
think
wonderful.
it makes it better, but every president I've ever spoken to has not really relished the idea of sitting in the
Of
chair
course,
for a very long
of
time.
course.
So.
But that one hasn't disappeared, has
Yeah.
it?
no, it hasn't.
It's still with us.
It's
right.
still
Yeah.
with us.
And I have to say, for all the challenges that the Harvard president has to endure, making him suffer
In
on
the
that
chair.
chair,
Yeah. Yeah.
seems a little excessive, right?
Especially if they think they're going to flip over.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's fabulous. Thank you so much
My
for taking the
pleasure.
time
Really
to be
fascinating.
here.
Yeah.
And really, I can't say enough about the archives. They are a wonderful, wonderful resource for Harvard and the community at large.
Yeah,
And
I just
thank you
wanted-
for all the good work you do.
Oh, thank you
it's
so
wonderful.
much. It's been my pleasure, and I really, really am happy to tell people about this. And
Yeah.
I want to invite them to come to the archives and use our materials and come visit our exhibits because they're here for everyone.
Thank you, Jenny, so
Thanks
much.
so
It's
much,
so great to
Jenny.
see
So
you.
much. So
Have
good
a
to
wonderful
see
day.
you.
Have a great day.
Great
Yeah.
day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Happy commencement.
And I believe, folks, as we transition here, that we have a shot of the chair, which I believe
There it
on
is.
your screen.
Right.
And so you can actually see there it sits on the rostrum, as it were. To the right is the former Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences in red, Bill Kirby. and you can see various other faculty coming to the stage. And I'm looking to see, Jackie, if the chair actually has the cushion on it that President Box.
No, you can't really see, but I know it's there.
I hope
it's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really kind of remarkable. Should we take a moment and just, before we continue, take a little tour around the yard and just see what's happening?
Well, we can also talk about the procession now, because I think
we're getting into it.
It's beginning to form.
Yeah.
And I see that those who are receiving honorary degrees are probably now just coming out of Massachusetts Hall, where they are robed and they sign the university guest book.
Yeah.
And then they come out and they're introduced to the press. You know, they're all confidential except for the commencement speaker. So the press will be out there interviewing and taking photographs. And this year there are six honorands, including the commencement speaker whom you've mentioned, Abraham Verghese. And along with him, we have, as you know, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who, by the way, was the class day speaker yesterday and gave a fabulous address.
Marvelous speech.
Right,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar,
really
of
wonderful.
Course, the great basketball player.
Right.
A 6-time MVP. No one has done that.
Right.
After all of these years, when you think of all the great players.
Right.
But he's also a social activist and a writer and a civil rights activist, and he's led a very impactful life post-professional basketball. Richard Alley is another recipient. Richard is a professor of geoscience, not a field I know a lot about, but what I do recognize is Nobel Peace Prize, which he won with Al Gore for his work on climate change. Dr. Alley is a professor at Penn State. After that is Esther Duflo, an MIT professor, and she has a really interesting title. She is a professor of poverty alleviation and development economics. That is not a title one that I've heard, Jackie. I don't know about you, but that there is someone at MIT who has dedicated her life to thinking about poverty alleviation and has herself been recognized with a Nobel Memorial Prize for her work in researching the conditions that lead to poverty and how to alleviate them. After that comes Elaine Kim. Elaine Kim is an American writer. She is a prominent professor, formerly from UC Berkeley, who is really a pioneering scholar of Asian American studies and an advocate as well for the needs of immigrants and in particular populations that were not historically part of the United States, say 200 years ago. A very important voice. Next up is someone dear to my heart.
Yes.
Rita Moreno.
Gotta love
I'd like
her.
to be in America, if you know West Side Story. If you haven't seen West Side Story, go see Rita. She's pretty terrific.
Do you know that she is 93 years old?
Yeah, she's still going strong.
I don't think she would mind if I told everybody that, because she had an 85-year career.
She had an 85-year career. And I heard her interviewed just within the last year. Sharp and so insightful in thinking about the career. And in particular, her concern was about Latin American representation on the Broadway stage and in film, and stereotypes. If you think about West Side Story and the role of the Sharks, there is a stereotype there.
Yeah, way back there.
And she wanted to break those down.
Right.
Rita is also one of the very few recipients of the EGOT. Jackie, do you know what the EGOT is?
I thought it was an animal. What is the EGOT?
I called my exterminator. No, the EGOT is someone who has won an Emmy Award, a Grammy Award, an Oscar Award, and a Tony Award.
Oh, wow.
She's won all four. So
wow,
quite
that's
extraordinary.
Fabulous.
And then our last honorary degree recipient is Abraham Verghese. Dr. Verghese is a professor at Stanford. He is a practicing doctor, medical doctor, clinical provider. But he's also, in addition to being a physician, a writer. And he's had enormous success as a writer, very compassionate in terms of his voice as a writer. If you've read The Covenant of Water, which was published in 2023, I think it actually reflects what we know about him as a caregiver.
Right.
So these are really wonderful people, and as always, Harvard is looking to put on stage of people who represent different disciplines, be it science or the arts or public affairs, whatever it be, not only to celebrate them, but to stand as an example for our graduates, that this too is something you might reach for.
Do you know who the first person to receive an honorary degree was?
George Washington.
Nope.
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin. All right,
Missed
good
by
old
that
Benjamin.
much.
Right. But I have to say, let's talk a little bit about modern times.
Yeah.
There have been many distinguished honorarians. In modern times, the standard dictates that you have to be present at commencement to receive an honorary degree. However, there have been some rare exceptions. One was George Washington. Another was General Lafayette, Winston Churchill, and Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, amazing.
And so
Yeah.
we have photos coming up. The first, I believe, is of Winston Churchill, and this is a really wonderful photograph. The history here is that in September of 1943, President Roosevelt contacted his friend, President Conant, who is the president of Harvard, to suggest that Harvard invite Churchill to come and receive an honorary degree. Churchill was actually living at the White House at the time and intended to leave and go to Canada. But the invitation to come to Harvard was accepted, and it was accepted in confidence. It was a big secret, okay? And 3 days before Churchill was to arrive here at Harvard, the members of the military who were in training on our campus were informed that he was going to come, and they kept it a secret. There were no leaks, which is kind of amazing.
Before the age of social media.
So the citation for Churchill on his honorary degree read, "Statesman and warrior, whose tenacity and courage turned back the tide of tyranny in freedom's darkest hour." It's a wonderful citation. And in his speech, often quoted, he said, "The empires of the future are the empires of the mind." Also a wonderful thing
quote,
to pause on, right? After his speech in Sanders Theater, President Conant walked Churchill to the steps of Memorial Church, and that's what you're seeing in the photograph. And Conant introduced Churchill to more than 7,000 men and women, uniformed officers in training on the campus, who greeted him with thunderous applause. And shortly after that, in June of 1944, came the Allied invasion of Normandy. Close to 27,000 Harvard students, faculty, staff, and alumni served in the armed forces in World War II.
I believe, although I'm sure there will be fact checkers, that apart from our military academies in the United States, no college or university has given more lives in service of the country
That is
than
true.
Harvard University.
Yes, and the names of 679 Harvard people who lost their lives in World War II are listed on the south wall of Memorial Church in the sanctuary. And in 1944, Jack, only 19 students remained on campus and were eligible to graduate, the smallest number of students since 1753.
Wow, so that's
Amazing.
amazing to think the campus had emptied out.
Yeah.
I mean, what a different era that was. Everyone stopped college and went on, sadly, to fight this battle which needed to be fought. There was another historic occasion here in Harvard Yard where an honorary degree was given. And right now, if you look at your screen, you can see that there's a picture there of various individuals, and right smack in the middle is General George C. Marshall. General Marshall is famous, of course, for the Marshall Plan, his plan to invest in the restoration of Europe after a horrible war and all the destruction and suffering that had happened there. So when he came to Harvard in 1947, he made a short speech. It was only 11 minutes long. And at the time, the Harvard magazine or Gazette wrote that it wasn't all that significant a speech, or it's not that they so much that they wrote that, but they didn't signify
They didn't see
that
it,
it was.
yes.
But in that 11-minute speech, he laid out a plan. And that plan was for investing in Europe post-war to build a healthy, thriving economy with which we could form this alliance, which we now today know as NATO. So he made this speech in 1947, and some years later, well, not long at all actually, the United States had invested over $13 billion in the rebuilding of Europe. To me, and I'm sure for you, Jackie, the Marshall Plan is a name I read about in history books. It's actually kind of amazing to think that right on those steps to our right as we sit here, General Marshall announced this vision for what would become the Marshall Plan. And
Secretary of
here.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Amazing moment. Well, there have been many amazing moments, as we both know. But for me, the most memorable moment at Harvard was a special convocation that we organized for Nelson Mandela to receive an honorary degree. And we had an outstanding invitation to him for many years, which he was unable to accept until his last visit to the United States before he stepped down as president. And we received notice, very short notice, in the beginning of August that he would come to us in September. And on September 18th, a beautiful fall day in 1998, he arrived, and as far as the eye could see, people from Harvard, from Cambridge, from Boston, all convened in Tercentenary Theater to watch him receive his honorary degree. And we had local school children present. They had a front row seat. The atmosphere was so joyful and so electric. But I have to say, Jack, it was his presence more than his speech that made the day so special, because he was a man in his 80s, still elegant and unbowed despite his 27 years of hard labor on Robben Island. And he had a simple message, really. It was the urgent need to address the growing disparity between the rich and the poor, a looming challenge for the globalized world then and now. Yes?
Yeah.
And, you know, we got word the day before his arrival that he had one request. It was actually, he insisted, okay, that the national anthem, the South African national anthem, Nkosi Sikelel' Afrika, be sung in the three languages, official languages of South Africa, which are Zulu, Afrikaans, and English. And we had to scramble to actually pull that off, but we did. We accommodated it.
Yeah.
It was very important to him. And at the end of the convocation, when the security wanted to escort him off stage, he waved them off, and he motioned to the students from Harvard, the Kumba singers and the choir, to come up on stage, and one by one he stood there, he shook their hands, he greeted them, and it was such a moving thing. The students were in tears, they were hugging him. It was really a wonderful, wonderful moment. I will always remember it, and I have to say, I can't quite explain, but there was an aura that you could feel around him in his presence. And the only way I can explain it is that maybe it was the special grace that comes with the power to forgive and reconcile his country. It was really, for me, it was one of the most spectacular things that ever happened here at Harvard.
Jackie, you have told me about this occasion, which predates my arrival at Harvard on a number of occasions. And there are some things that stick with you. And I know this one stuck with you. It's really so important to see people like this at any time in history, and certainly at the time in which we're living, when people have the courage to stand up and say what they feel needs to be said. This is what citizenship is. And these are the kinds of people that we hope to educate at Harvard University.
Yes.
And citizenship, you know, I was thinking about it, Jackie, it can take on many forms. I was thinking about people in our medical school. I'm sure you'll be seeing today images from around the yard of the med school, the dental school, the School of Public Health. These are people who are doing critical research that will change the world, making breakthroughs in cancer research, in all kinds of diseases that people have suffered with for years. This too is a form of leadership, and so it's a very special place, and I think we're proud to be affiliated
and we have
with
the
it.
famous Dexter Gate. Do you remember the inscription on the Dexter Gate?
Yeah.
Enter to grow in wisdom, depart to serve thy country and thy kind.
Yeah, that's a great message. You know?
It is. It's a great
That's what
message.
I would say to my children when I was raising them. Enter to grow in wisdom, but for God's sakes, go out do something impactful. They don't always listen to me. But I think they do for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay, getting back to business. So we're really at the magic point here.
We are.
I think
we're
we'll take
close.
a little tour of the yard now, and we'll just talk about some of the things we're seeing. So right now on your screen, you should be seeing the undergraduates from Kirkland House who are coming down the center aisle. This is like a military operation, folks.
Doesn't look like
it
one.
Doesn't, you know.
It looks like a meander to me.
It does look like a meander. This is not quite the equivalent of the D-Day landing, but it feels like it when you're running it.
But you know, the trick though is to get everybody in their seats, but to let them have a good time.
Yes.
You know, I mean, we want to make the trains run on time, but you know, for a few minutes late here or there, so be it.
Yeah.
Because they want to socialize, they want to greet each other, and you know, it's a special day for everybody. So let's relax and enjoy it.
Absolutely, and you can see the crowds here.
Yeah.
We have another shot on the screen. As you perhaps know, all of you who went to Harvard, who have family here, there are 12 undergraduate houses. You're looking at 2 of them, Currier House and Elliott House. And students take a lot of pride in their house affiliation.
Right.
And they oftentimes, in certain orations, which we might talk about later at commencement, will make reference to their house, and you will hear their house cheer especially loud. So it's just kind of a fantastic energy. And if we can get them all in here, we might actually have a commencement. Meanwhile, if we cut to Widener Library, on the steps of Widener Library, which is named for Henry Elkins Widener, who was Harry.
Don't forget it's Harry.
Harry, who was sadly one of the people who was lost on the Titanic. And his mother made a gift to establish the Widener Library in his memory. And you are looking there at large crowds of friends and family. People line up at the gates.
It's 5:30 in the morning.
It's incredible,
Yes,
and the gates open at 7, and then people throng in. And you're looking here at just a slice of it. And Jackie, I always have loved the banners on the front of the library. They just so celebratory.
They are. They were first flown as part of the 350th anniversary of Harvard. And they've been there ever since for every event, every commencement.
I did not know
They're really
that.
wonderful.
It's quite beautiful.
Do you want to talk about the beginning of the ceremony? Because I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time to talk about the sheriff and
sure, we'll do that.
Okay.
Let's just give them one more shot of the platform.
Yeah.
Just because you're looking out at the moment at the crowds coming in, but here is a reverse angle, and you are looking as the undergraduates go into their seats at the platform where the actual ceremony will take place. You can see the podium, and if you look way back in the center of that picture, you might just see the tops of that historic president's chair that Ginny was talking with us about. And we're hoping it will not fall down. We have a lot of confidence in its stability. But yes, let's take a moment to talk about the ceremony and what you might expect today. So there's, of course, a great deal of tradition at these events. But I think one of the moments that students love the most is the very beginning, because there are certain things that happen that signal the start. The first of these is that the bells in Memorial Church will start to ring. And you'll hear a cheer come up over the yard as people sort of anticipate the start of the celebration. And interestingly about these bells start the ceremony and they end the ceremony, Jackie.
Yes, they do. And you know, while you're mentioning that, I do want to make sure that we acknowledge the very good work of Cynthia Rosano, who is our historian and who for many years has organized not just the ringing of the bells on the Harvard campus, but the ringing of the bells throughout the city of Cambridge. There are 18 churches that also ring bells to sell. It's a wonderful town gown tradition. And she's a very, very special person to Harvard. She's so generous and is always looking for innovative new things to do. So I just want to acknowledge her.
And Cynthia has written many books about the history of Harvard, including one about the history of the bells. It's just a really wonderful moment to leave Harvard Yard after the ceremony and hear chiming all across the city of Cambridge.
But going back to the start of the
ceremony.
So talk about the sheriff.
Then there is a moment which I think we treasure.
We do.
There is a sheriff. Yes, Harvard invites a sheriff. He doesn't come in on a horse, folks.
He used to.
Did he used to come in on a horse?
He used to.
Yeah. What happened to the horse?
I guess they don't have horses anymore that they take care of. So
from what I
no more
understand,
horses.
no one wanted to walk behind the horse. But in any case, that's probably a joke I shouldn't have made. But anyways, so
we tried to get through this without getting silly, didn't
without
we?
making
It
silly
wasn't
jokes,
going to
folks.
happen,
But
right?
actually, just to tell you about this moment, the sheriff of Middlesex County, the role of the sheriff in old days was actually to keep order, and I mean literally to keep order.
Right.
Harvard commencements in ancient days could be rowdy affairs, and the sheriff would actually be there for crowd control. But now, the sheriff, who I believe we're not seeing the sheriff here, I don't believe. But the sheriff of Middlesex County, we think this is the sheriff. I guess it is. I recognize him by his top hat.
Yeah.
And when that goes on, I'll know it for sure. But the sheriff will, after the bells have rung, the marshal of the university, Katie O'Dare, will say, "Pray, Mr. Sheriff, bring the meeting to order." And then the sheriff enters from stage right and is carrying a scepter. And as the sheriff walks, it thumps on the floor as the sheriff crosses the stage. Very dramatic. The audience noise swells. And no matter how many times you've seen this, you still can't help but love it. Finally, the sheriff comes to the center of the stage, turns upstage, doffs his hat to the president, to the various dignitaries on stage, and then comes to a microphone and pounds his scepter 3 times.
I think you want to be the sheriff.
I think
yes,
it's a great
I think you
gig.
do. Yeah, you'd be great.
He pounds his scepter 3 times on the platform and then says, calls the meeting to order. But when you hear this today, he doesn't say, "I call this meeting to order." He says it in a way that, well, only he can say it, so we'll let him say it. So it's a moment that's short on words, but very long on bombast. It's more
Mr. Bombastic, Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
It's like if you think about pomp and circumstance with commencements, this is the pomp part.
He's the pomp.
This is
Absolutely.
it. This is followed then by a prayer, an opening prayer, and the national anthem, which will be sung by a student, a graduating senior this year, Madison Webb. Another distinctive aspect of the commencement is the student orations. And there are 3 orations given.
Yep.
And this is a remarkable thing. These students, to be chosen to give an oration, and there's a Latin salutary, there's the undergraduate address,
Right.
and the graduate address. To be chosen is quite a distinct honor. You have to be able to speak for several minutes without any notes. You have to have a message that is bigger than yourself, that actually really means something to people, that resonates in a way that will be lasting. And in order to receive this honor, you are judged by a panel of faculty who review your recitation.
It's very competitive.
Yeah, and they think about content, they think about delivery, they think about theatricality.
Right.
So this is always a very special moment. My favorite moment is always the Latin oration. I don't speak Latin, but fortunately in the commencement program, they have a translation. And there are always a lot of sort of in-jokes.
Yeah.
And I feel like I hear the voice of Cicero
Right, exactly.
back in the day speaking. It's quite inspiring.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say this. Not everybody wants to try out to stand in front of 30,000 people and deliver an oration from memory.
Yeah.
People self-select, for sure.
Yeah.
But there are some wonderful moments, and the students really enjoy seeing their fellow students up there performing.
Absolutely. And in the Latin salutation, listen for the name of the undergraduate house that the student is in. Because at some point, you may not, as they say, the Latin may be Greek to you, but you'll understand it when they say Adam's house, and that part of the crowd cheers. So it's quite an extraordinary event. And I wonder if we could go to the yard now for some last shots. I'd love to just sort of look around and see what we have going here. And you can see that Tercentenary Theater
starting to fill up.
Starting to fill in.
Yep. The
Quite
moment is close. Yeah.
Yeah. It is sort of like a herding process, isn't it?
Are we glad that the rain stopped and that we have nice weather?
Thrilled.
So important. There's a saying, it never rains on Harvard commencement. Well, okay.
I remember one president whose name will not be said, who on the eve of commencement though there was a forecast for rain, decreed that it never rains on Harvard commencement. And it was Noah-like, the kinds of rainfall that we had.
So much for Veritas.
So much for Veritas, yeah. And here we see the stage, people gathering. So what you're looking at here, folks, are members of the corporation and the board of overseers. Way
the
back,
United Ministry.
That's right.
And over, you can't see it on the screen, but if you're facing the stage, to the right will be the deans and the vice presidents and senior people. And on either side of the center stage will be the faculty.
And we had a moment ago a shot there of President Garber, although I think he was, President Garber's moving to his seat now, or attempting to. He's been such a wonderful leader for the university. Having had the chance to work for and very minimally with him, I could not admire him more.
There he is.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
Thank you, President Garber. And he's seated in the most comfortable seat in the Western Hemisphere, except for maybe all the other seats.
You know, traditions come and go. There have been changes along the way. One of them was that the president does not wear a headpiece anymore.
Yes.
Another is that Drew Faust did the thing that they said couldn't be done, which he increased the members of the corporation,
a key thing,
from 6 to 13. And people thought that was impossible. So I'm trying to figure out why this chair has lasted as long as it has. Do you think there'll be a president who'll finally say enough with the chair and it'll just go back into oblivion, or what?
I think the chair
I don't think we'll live that long.
I don't know. I think the chair is here to stay for a while.
Too.
You know, but if they do get rid of it, I want dibs.
Well, it's quite distinctive, I must say. It may not be comfortable, but it certainly its presence is known.
So I believe we are close to wrapping up. I understand.
Yes.
So I want to just say, and Jackie, first of all, what a pleasure to do this with you.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
We have many happy memories we share together.
And to you, family, friends, everybody who loves these students.
And a special acknowledgement to Stephen Magro, the commencement coordinator, who puts his heart and soul into the commencement every year.
Absolutely.
It's
so
wonderful.
Everybody, congratulations to the graduates. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day. Harvard Commencement 2025.
Bye-bye, everyone. Enjoy.
Mr. Sheriff, pray give us order.
As the High Sheriff
of Middlesex County, I declare that the meeting will be in order.
Please rise as you are able for the national anthem to be sung by Madison Webb, Harvard College class of 2025. Please remain standing for the chaplain of the day, Reverend Gloria White Hammond, to open the exercises.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets reckless, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, the
Good morning. Good morning. The theme for this morning's opening prayer is gratitude. Now, I'm sure you have all kinds of worrisome thoughts swirling through your brain right now. This cap really doesn't look like it's going to stay on. On a scale of 1 to 10, how angry are my parents going to be when they realize I really haven't packed as much as I should? But just for the next 3 minutes or so, I'm going to ask that you focus your thoughts on 2 words, 1 thought: thank you. Let's begin by thanking the great people of the Massachusetts tribe. Harvard University is located on the traditional and ancestral land of the Massachusetts, the original inhabitants of what is now known as Boston and Cambridge. We pay deep respect to the people of the Massachusetts tribe, past and present, and we honor the land itself which remains sacred to the Massachusetts people. Together we say, thank you. And now we pray. Our God, it is with a profound sense of gratitude that we invoke your presence. Thank you for the rich tapestry of humanity, both on site and online, representing different races, religions, gender identities, ethnicities, countries of origin, with different physical, social, and intellectual needs, and for the affirmation that because we belong to you, we belong here. For our ancestors, that great cloud of witnesses from whom we have descended, we are here today because they were there for us yesterday. Thank you. For these family members, for all the ways they've shown up in the lives of these graduates, for their provisions, their patience, their perseverance. Somebody's about to make their final payment to Harvard, ka-chink, 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 for the pay raise that is on the way. Thank you. For each of these 9,000 plus graduates in the fullness of their identities, for all the ways that you've gifted them, thank you. For meeting them in their midnight hours, protecting them amid their foolishness, some of which we may never know about. Thank you. For the even greater things that you have in store for them. Oh, for the places they will go, the people they will meet, the things they will do, the difference they will make throughout the world. Thank you. For the amazing staff at Harvard who have come alongside to pour into these graduates, like the facilities staff, the IT people, the dining hall team, thank you. For the financial aid officers, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. For the registrars, the health service staff, librarians, counselors, thank you. For the faculty and teaching staff, for the ways they encourage these students to go further, dig deeper, and aim higher, thank you. For our administration, for the courage to make the changes that they should, and the conviction to stand for the principles they must, and the wisdom to stay focused and know the difference. Oh God, for all these things and so much more, 2 words, 1 thought, thank you.
Nostrum
Welcome. Thank you. Welcome, family and friends, champions and supporters. Welcome guests from down the street, across the country, and around the world. And welcome members of the class of 2025. Members of the class of 2025 from down the street, across the country, and around the world. Around the world, just as it should be. I see you this morning not as groups of graduates separated by school, but as one Harvard, a community bound by the shared sense, the shared cause of seeking knowledge, of acquiring wisdom, and of serving society. A community composed of remarkable individuals who take their chances rather than rest on their laurels. We gather today to acknowledge your achievements and to celebrate your excellence. Here, among beloved colleagues and mentors, and distinguished and dedicated faculty and staff, you have learned to consider curiosity, a state in which to live, open always to the ever-present possibility of personal growth. I implore you to hold fast to that lesson after your degrees are conferred today. The world as it is tempts us with the lure of what one might generously call comfortable thinking, a habit of mind that readily convinces us of the merits of our own assumptions, the veracity of our own arguments, and the soundness of our own opinions, positions, and perspectives. So committed to our beliefs that we seek information that confirms them as we discredit evidence that refutes them. Though many would be loath to admit it, absolute certainty and willful ignorance are two sides of the same coin, a coin with no value, but costs beyond measure. False conviction saps true potential. Focused on satisfying a deep desire to be right, we can willingly lose that which is so often gained from being wrong. Humility, empathy, generosity, insight, squandering opportunities to expand our thinking and to change our minds in the process. My hope for you, members of the class of 2025, is that you stay comfortable being uncomfortable, starting with the folding chairs on which you sit right now. Ambition eschews comfort. If, in some near or distant future, you find yourself feeling as if you have it all figured out, as if you know enough to kick up your feet and lean back in your seat, recall this day and your chairs, and just how much you have to gain from living your life in a state of curiosity and welcoming ideas, both familiar and unfamiliar, with your arms outstretched and your minds open. You are the hope of this institution embodied, living proof that our mission changes not only the lives of individuals, but also the trajectories of the communities that you will join, serve, and lead. May you carry the best of what Harvard is and does into the world that awaits you. May you chart a path for others to follow as you choose your own. And may your many destinations bring you joy, satisfaction, and peace. Your journey will not always be clear, and it will surely be full of unexpected turns. But fortified by openness and curiosity, by what you have learned here, and by the many connections you have made and will make, you will bring honor to yourself, your family, and your alma mater. Thank you, and congratulations.
Latin salutatory, De Hereditatibus Peregrinus. Candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Comparative Study of Religion and in Classics, Aidan Robert Scully.
Praeses Garber, aestimatissimi decani, sapientissimi professores, honestissimi hospites, amici, familiae, et carissimi condiscipuli, salvete omnes! Honor mihi maxim est, vos ad loqui. Oratio illa, non tantum quo facultate carente, sed etiam cohorte in soi factorum discipulorum antiquitatis, qui linguam latinam legere, scribereque, sed non dicere audireque possunt, sine translatione intellegi non potest, imprimis me. Itaque, omnes audientes expectatis unam modo jocosam sententiam in Anglice, venturas, nolite trepidare. Horologia spicitis et clare putatis quando Abraham verges, imo aliquis loquens in Anglice dictatur sit, quis ratio loquendi Latine, patientiam rogo, rationem proferam. Ante illam diem gaudi maximi vincula nos jungentia obscura erant. Condiscipuli nostri non tam vicini quam peregrini, discipuli humanitatum, iter facerunt ad area Harvardiana, dum discipuli scientiarum naturalium, in exilium eunt, arripam ulteriorem in gentis flui Caroliani, gravioris quam Rubico. Illa tempora nusitata ubi convenimus, in sectione discussiones gened, terribilia erant, horribile dictu, visi sumus dicere barbaria ad portas, cum clamabamus aut mathematicos in classe literarum, aut concentrator studiorum socialium conatur coding. O tempora, o mores, non nos intellegimus, et orator equidem linguam tantam obscuram dicit, ut aliquis audiens iure exclamet, what is this guy saying? Quod res peregrinas discimus, tot linguas peregrinas dicimus. Ali linguam historiae loquuntur, ali linguam Pythonis, vel qui plus plus. Ali microbion, ali stellarum. Universa lingua saepe caremus. Multae hereditates nostrae in aeternum dividentur? Minime. Multas linguas peregrinas laquimur, una tamen stamus, et una discimus, et una atletas olympianosque laudamus, et maxime, una de testabiles ielienses damnamus, et quorum saevum tyrannum handsome Dan. Eodem modo, sueta lingua latina alis insueta, sed est hereditas tradita beneficium omnibus. Hereditates peregrinae, vincula nos iungentia confirmant. Fortasse, a sede potestatis audiebas, non esse dignam laudis tuam hereditatem, sed alienam aut obscuram aut inferiorem. Tibimet, dico, nec potestates, nec principes, tuam hereditatem judicare possunt. Nec potestates, nec principes, tuam hereditatem auferre possunt. Nec potestates, nec principes possunt veritatem mutare, aut negare diversitatem nostram fortitudinem esse. Quis ratio loquendi Latine? Hic est. Memoria tenere omnem hereditatem, quantum vis insuetam, nostras fortunas augere. Cultura mundi meliores omnes linguas poscet, illa nos poscet. Navis mundi corrigetor nona subductus supercili carptore, querenta quod credens justitiae ex agmine ignorantiae aggressus sit, sed ab artifice, qui vates mundi novi fit, ab medico, qui honoratos ab verberis vinculisque mundi curat, ad discipulo historiae, qui iniquitate solitas mundi ab radice euelit. Una corrigemus. Ut pius Aeneas olim suae cohortis animas confirmavit, nunc vos ad hortor duratet vos met rebus servate secundis. Usque arres illas secundas semper veritas et valete.
Senior English Address. This world is not conclusion. Candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Environmental Science and Public Policy and in the Comparative Study of Religion, Thor Ryman.
This world is not conclusion. A species stands beyond, invisible as music, but positive as sound. It beckons and it baffles, philosophy don't know, and through a riddle, at the last, sagacity must go. To guess it puzzles scholars, to gain it men have borne contempt of generations, and crucifixion shown. Faith slips and laughs and rallies, blushes if any see, plucks at a twig of evidence, and asks a vain the way. Much gesture from the pulpit, strong hallelujahs roll. Narcotics cannot still the tooth that nibbles at the soul. I first encountered this Emily Dickinson poem my freshman year, across the yard in Boylston Hall. Immediately, I was in love. I underlined the opening phrase and annotated it with my scholarly best. OMG. This poem followed me through Harvard. During my first finals, it became a reminder that my stressors would pass. This paper was not conclusion. When I ran the Boston Marathon, the poem was running there with me. That pain cave, thankfully, not conclusion either. And now today, we gather here to celebrate not conclusion, but commencement. I'll admit, this can be a hard reframing. For me, Harvard has often felt like an end rather than a beginning. I grew up as one of the few openly queer kids in my Minnesota hometown. And I applied to Harvard, not just for the academic experience, but for the personal space, to fully explore who I was, alongside incredible peers from around the world who were all seeking to do the same. So to finally get here, just for Emily Dickinson to tell me that this isn't conclusion, thanks, Emily. But 4 years later, I can see that's the paradox we face. The purpose of our time here really starts today as we leave campus, and especially as we leave a much different campus than the one we entered, with Harvard at the center of a national battle over higher education in America. Now look, our university is certainly imperfect, but I am proud to stand today alongside our graduating class, our faculty, and our president with the shared conviction that this ongoing project of Veritas is one worth defending. And let us be comforted by the knowledge that this community, our community, has led the way through chaos before. These halls sheltered troops during the American Revolution as Harvard alumni imagined a new democracy. During the Great Depression, a Harvard alum created the New Deal. And during the Cold War, it was a Harvard alum who inspired us all by dreaming to put a man on the moon. All of this our alumni achieved not in service of themselves or ideology, but in service of others in times of great national need. These too are times of great need, but this world is not conclusion. A species stands beyond, and if only we follow in the footsteps of our alumni and truly put our education in service of something greater, the world that comes out of this will be a better one. You can try to shirk this charge of service, but Emily Dickinson knows that it will chase you down. Narcotics cannot still that tooth that nibbles at the soul. I pray, in whatever world finds you next, in whatever stands beyond Harvard, when that tooth bites, listen to what it tells you, because this world is not conclusion. Class of 2025, this is commencement.
Graduate English Address, Our Humanity. Candidate for the degree of Master in Public Administration, Yurong Luana Jiang.
Last summer, when I was doing my internship in Mongolia, I got a call from 2 classmates in Tanzania. They had a very urgent question: how to use their washing machine. Because all the labels were in Chinese, and Google kept translating a big button as spinning ghost mode. There we were, an Indian and a Thai, calling me, a Chinese in Mongolia, to decipher a washer in Tanzania. And we all studied together here at Harvard. That moment reminds me of something I used to believe when I was a kid, that the world was becoming a small village. I remember being told we will be the first generation to end hunger and poverty for humankind. My program at Harvard is International Development. It was built on this exact beautiful vision that humanity rises and falls as one. When I met my 77 classmates from 32 different countries, the countries I knew only as colorful shapes on a map turned into real people with laughter, dreams, and the perseverance to survive the long winter in Cambridge. We danced through each other's traditions and carried the weight of each other's worlds. Global challenges suddenly felt personal. If there's a woman anywhere in the world who cannot afford a period pad, it makes me poor. If a girl who skips school out of fear of harassment that threatens my dignity, if a little boy dies in a war that he didn't start and never understood, part of me dies with him. But today, that promise of a connected world is giving way to division, fear, and conflict. We're starting to believe those who think differently, vote differently, or pray differently, whether they are across the ocean or sitting right next to us, are not just wrong. We mistakenly see them as evil. But it doesn't have to be this way. What I've gained most from Harvard isn't just calculus or regression analysis. It's to sit with discomfort. Listen deeply and stay soft in hard times. Because if we still believe in a shared future, let us not forget those who we label as enemies, they too are human. In seeing their humanity, we find our own. In the end, we do not rise by proving each other wrong. We rise by refusing to let one another go. So, class of 2025, when the world feels stuck in spinning ghost mode, just remember, as we leave this campus, we carry everyone we've met across wealth and poverty, cities and villages, faith and doubt. They speak different languages and dream different dreams, and yet they've all become part of us. You may disagree with them, but hold on to them, as we are bound by something deeper than belief, our shared humanity. Congratulations, class of 2025. As I
These addresses by selected candidates for ordinary degrees being ended, the deans of the several departments will now present to the President and Fellows and to the Board of Overseers, in the favoring presence of family and friends here assembled, the candidates on whom the various academic distinctions are, with due ceremony, to be conferred. I now recognize the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences.
Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard College, Madame President and members of the Board of Overseers, in the name of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and by its authority, I have the honor to report on 4 groups of candidates who will be presented to you today. First, the Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences will present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and the degree of Master of the Arts. Next, the Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences will present candidates for the Master of Science and the Master of Engineering. Then, the Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension will present candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Liberal Arts and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies. Finally, near the close of these exercises, the seniors in Harvard College who are candidates candidates for the first degree in arts or in science will stand proudly before you. The candidates in each of these groups have, by the vote of the faculty, fulfilled requirements for the degrees for which they are severally recommended. I salute all of these individuals, trusting that they will forever wisely enjoy the freedom that their education has given them, while bearing the responsibilities that their learning demands of them. Each of these groups will now be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they have been enrolled.
As Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I invite the candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy to rise. Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these scholars, all of whom have devoted themselves to the rigorous pursuit of advanced study and made original contributions to knowledge in their several fields of scholarship.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me in recognizing your high academic achievements, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, welcome you to the ancient and universal company of scholars, and entrust to you the free inquiry of future generations. Congratulations.
invite the candidates for the degree of Master of Arts from the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences to rise. Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, and members of the Board of Overseers, as Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these candidates, all of whom have completed a commendable step of advanced study in their respective disciplines.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Arts and certify that you have surmounted with distinction an important stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
As Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, I invite the candidates for the degree of Master of Science and Master of Engineering to rise. Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these degree candidates who have completed a commendable step of advanced study in engineering and applied sciences.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Science or Master of Engineering, and affirm that you stand ready to address societal challenges through foundational science with translational impact. Congratulations.
As Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension, I invite the candidates for the degrees of Bachelor of Liberal Arts and Master of Liberal Arts and Extension Studies to please rise. Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the great honor to present to you these degree candidates who have demonstrated their ability, curiosity, and drive as purposeful students and scholars.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and recognize your commendable achievements as committed learners. Congratulations.
I now invite the responsible deans to continue the presentation of candidates for degrees.
Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, it is my honor to report today that two groups of candidates in the fields of medicine and dental medicine have fulfilled the faculty's requirements for the degrees for which they are represented. They will be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they are enrolled.
As Dean of the School of Dental Medicine, I invite the degree candidates from the School of Dental Medicine to rise. Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these degree candidates who have devoted themselves to the study of dental medicine and to the improving of health and the quality of life.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and declare that you are ready for practice and research in a demanding branch of medicine. Congratulations.
As Dean of Medical Education, I invite the degree candidates from the medical school to rise. Mr. President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these degree candidates who have dedicated themselves to the relief of human suffering and prepared themselves well for a life of learning and service in medicine.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and declare that you are ready to pursue and advance an honorable and merciful calling. Congratulations.
As Dean of the Divinity School, I invite the graduates from the Divinity School to please rise. Mr. President and Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these degree candidates who have completed programs of religious and theological studies in preparation for careers as leaders in scholarship and vocations of service.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and declare that you are well prepared to foster the health and vitality of communities of faith, to further scholarship in religious studies, and to help in shaping the shared values of the broader society. Congratulations.
As Interim Dean of the Faculty of Law, I invite the degree candidates from the law school to rise. Mr. President and fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these degree candidates, each of whom has completed a degree in legal studies towards the end of advancing justice and promoting the rule of law.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and declare that you are ready to aid in the shaping and application of those wise restraints that make us free. Congratulations.
As Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration, I invite the degree candidates from the business school to please rise. Mr. President and fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these degree candidates who have mastered the study of business administration and prepared themselves to be leaders who will make a difference in the world.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and testify that you are ready to lead people and organizations in enterprises that will serve society. Congratulations.
Not yet. As Dean of the Faculty of Design, I invite the degree candidates from the Graduate School of Design to rise. And let me note that the GSD candidates are appropriately standing in front of the extraordinary Seaver Hall, designed in 1878 by the renowned architect and Harvard alumnus, H.H. Richardson. Mr. President and fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the great honor to present to you these degree candidates who have pursued studies to imagine and construct a better world through research, planning, and design.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and declare your competence to lead in shaping the spaces in which we live. Congratulations.
As Dean of the School of the Faculty of Public Health,
I invite the degree candidates from the School of Public Health to please rise. Mr. President and fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the great honor to present to you these candidates who live qualified for a degree to provide leadership, advance knowledge, and improve the health of populations and communities.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and declare that you are well prepared to generate and utilize knowledge to improve health throughout the world. Congratulations.
As Dean of the Faculty of Education, I invite the degree candidates from the Graduate School of Education to please rise. Mr. President and fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these degree candidates who will change the world through education.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and declare that you are well prepared to guide and serve the learning needs of contemporary society. Congratulations.
As Dean of the Faculty of Government, I invite the degree candidates from the School of Government to rise. Mr. President and fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the honor to present to you these degree candidates, each of whom has qualified to provide leadership in public service.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees for which you have qualified and testify that you are well prepared to serve as public leaders and to improve public policy and administration throughout the world. Congratulations.
Hope inside us will lead the way on the
With deep appreciation for his years of devoted service, I now recognize the Dean of Harvard College.
As Dean of Harvard College, I invite the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science to rise. I recognize with special pride their chosen representatives and the candidates for those degrees summa cum laude. Mr. President and fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers, I have the great honor to present to you these candidates, each of whom has fulfilled the faculty's requirements for the first degree in arts or in science. Each candidate stands ready to advance knowledge, to promote understanding, and to serve society.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the first degree in arts or in science and admit you to the fellowship of educated individuals. Congratulations. By virtue of authority delegated to me by the two governing boards, I now confer the following honorary degrees. The provost will introduce the candidates.
He led his high school basketball team, Power Memorial Academy, to 71 consecutive wins. He led his college team, UCLA, to 3 straight national titles. The first pick in the NBA draft, he led the Milwaukee Bucks to their first championship, and the Los Angeles Lakers to 5 more. He won a record 6 Most Valuable Player awards. He made the All-Star team a phenomenal 19 times. When he retired, he held the record as the NBA's all-time leading scorer, thanks largely to his signature skyhook. He hung up his size 16 sneakers in 1989, but he was far from finished. He turned his focus, as he put it, from success to significance. He is an author of more than 15 books. His subjects have included the Harlem Renaissance, the history of African American inventors, the lives of overlooked World War II heroes, and his experience coaching a White Mountain Apache high school basketball team, not to mention a series of mystery novels. His latest book, We All Want to Change the World, was published just 2 weeks ago. He has spoken and written widely on social and cultural issues, on faith and values, on race and justice. He has served as a U.S. Global Cultural Ambassador. Befitting his stardom in LA, he has acted in numerous movies and TV shows and written or produced several others. He created and championed the Skyhook Foundation, offering STEM-based outdoor learning experiences to thousands of school children. On receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom, he was praised as an American who illuminates both our most basic freedoms and our highest aspirations. We welcome an athlete, author, actor, and advocate of rare stature. Starting at center, number 33, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
A tower of power who propelled his teams to triumph, an avid proponent of pluralism's promise. The arc of his skyhook is long, but it bends toward justice. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Doctor of Laws.
Our next guest has combined a field-changing academic career with a fervent commitment to community service. She studied for her PhD at the University of California, Berkeley, where she wrote a path-breaking dissertation on Asian American literature. She recalls having had to transfer from the English department to the School of Education to finish her doctorate because there was so little scholarly regard at the time for Asian American literature. She served for decades on the Berkeley faculty. She was a leading force in the emergence of Asian American and ethnic studies. She has written or edited numerous books and articles about the experience of Asian Americans, her subjects ranging across literature, visual art, the work lives of women, the interplay of gender and nationalism, the life stories of Korean Americans, and more. She has written or produced several documentaries on topics including the representation of Asian women in American movies and television, the role of immigrants in the labor movement, and the aftermath of the 1992 Los Angeles riots. In parallel, she has invested herself deeply in the wider community. She is a co-founder of several vibrant social service organizations: Asian Women United, the Korean Community Center of the East Bay, and Asian Immigrant Women Advocates. As one admiring scholar wrote about her, "Without your work on Asian American literature, without your making waves and more waves, without your work on Asian American visual art, without your paving the way for others to come, not only in the academy, but also in society, the situation would be quite different. To a lot of people, you really made a difference." We honor Professor Elaine Kim.
path-marking scholar of Asian American lives, spanning literature and art, labor and gender, dynamic in devotion to building community. She sees that making waves can help raise the tide. Elaine H. Kim, Doctor of Laws.
Born in Paris, the daughter of a math professor and a pediatrician, she grew up with an eclectic set of heroes. Carl Friedrich Gauss, the great mathematician, Albert Schweitzer, the fabled physician, philosopher, and humanitarian, and Mother Teresa, the selfless servant of people in need. At age 20, she saw economics, in her words, as an elaborate hoax aimed at justifying keeping the world exactly as it was. But before long, she came to see economics as a powerful lever to make a positive change in the world. She soon emerged as an eminent development economist, focused on improving the lives of poor people worldwide. Her work, she says, takes root in the conviction that it is possible to make significant progress against poverty in the world by focusing on well-defined questions and being as rigorous as possible in answering those questions in the real world. With her colleague and spouse, Abhijit Banerjee, she has pursued a myriad of innovative field experiments to inform, assess, and improve policies aimed at alleviating poverty around the globe. She has co-founded and co-led the Abdul Latif Jameel Poverty Action Lab, dedicated to reducing poverty by ensuring that policy is anchored in scientific evidence. Her work spans health, education, financial inclusion, the environment, and governance. She has achieved all this from an academic base just down the road at an institution universally recognized as the best university in the city of Cambridge, east of Central Square. We honor the Abdul Latif Jameel Professor of Poverty Alleviation and Development at MIT, the president of the Paris School of Economics, and a recipient of the 2019 Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences, Esther Duflo.
Devoted to easing the burdens of poverty with a wealth of ideas and experimental savvy, she personifies the ethos of a childhood hero. The greatest good is what we do for others. Esther Duflo, Doctor of Laws.
My job description, our next guest said, is to go to some of the most beautiful places on earth with great people, learn what nobody knows, and share that knowledge with others to help them do good things. It's a characteristically humble self-description from one of the world's most accomplished climate scientists. Personifying the power of great public universities, he is a graduate of Ohio State and the University of Wisconsin, and a longtime professor at Penn State. He has traveled frequently to Greenland, Antarctica, Alaska, and elsewhere to study the planet's massive sheets of ice. Analyzing annual rings within 2-mile deep cores of ice sheets formed in Greenland over many millennia, he has shown how Earth's climate has changed abruptly in the distant past, and he has shed new light on how climate and sea levels might change in the future. Honored with the National Medal of Science, he was a key participant in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that shared the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007. He introduced the concept of switches and dials that control the Earth's climate. He also has a special flair for explaining climate change to the broader public. His book, The 2-Mile Time Machine, and his work on the PBS series Earth, The Operator's Manual, have drawn widespread attention to our climate and energy challenges. He brings his own unflagging energy and optimism to his essential work. The drumbeat of bad news can be daunting, he says about climate science, but we work in a wonderful field, and the knowledge we produce really does help people live better. We honor one of the coolest scientists on Earth, Richard Alley.
A pioneer in probing Earth's paleoclimate, a guru in expounding glacial dynamics. He exerts a tectonic impact on how we understand our planet, extracting groundbreaking insights from his ice-breaking exploits. Richard B. Alley, Doctor of Science.
She was born in Puerto Rico. As a child, she moved to New York City with her mother aboard the densely crowded, storm-stricken SS Carabobo. Inspired by the actor Rita Hayworth, she dreamed of becoming a star. She started with dance lessons. She made her Broadway debut at 13. She dubbed children's voices in Spanish for American movies. In her 20s, she landed screen roles in Singin' in the Rain and The King and I. Her big breakthrough came in the 1961 movie version of West Side Story. Her iconic performance as Anita earned her an Oscar. She recalls that in an era when she had few role models in the arts world, she found that model in Anita, a Latina who radiated dignity, self-respect, and a zest for life. Over decades, she has become a role model herself for countless others. With her virtuosic talent as an actor, singer, and dancer, and with the vitality and grace that she continues to radiate after more than 3/4 of a century as a performing artist. She is among the few people who have attained the status of EGOT. winning Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Awards. Her Tony came for her performance as the flamboyant Googie Gomez in The Ritz. Her Grammy came for her starring role in The Electric Company, a beloved children's television series in the 70s. Her 2 Emmys came for performances on The Muppet Show and The Rockford Files. Her memorable roles have multiplied across the decades, as has her influence on aspiring artists with ambitious dreams. Well into her 80s, she starred as Abuelita Lydia in the acclaimed TV series One Day at a Time, and as a new nonagenarian, she delighted New England sports fans with her star turn in the 2023 movie, 80 for Brady. When I was a girl, she recalled, you could still get certain jobs if you didn't have a diploma, with hopes that the parchment we now present her will not damage her future prospects. We honor Rita Moreno.
From Anita to Abuelita, decade after decade, one role at a time, she has captivated audiences with her artistry and ardor. For all who aspire to achieve their dreams, she shows there's a place for us somewhere.
Somewhere, somehow, we'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving. Somewhere.
Rita Moreno, Doctor of Arts.
We are very grateful to Carolyn Howe and Henry Wu for that very special tribute. Chekhov, Keats, Arthur Conan Doyle, William Carlos Williams. Our final honored guest carries forward the legacy of men of medicine who've had a special way with words. He was born in Ethiopia to parents of Indian descent. His early interest in medicine was kindled by reading books. In time, his practice of medicine spurred him to write them. He studied at Madras Medical College in India, trained in Tennessee, and spent 2 years at Boston City Hospital. As a young physician, he returned to Tennessee to care for ailing patients afflicted by the AIDS epidemic. That led to his first book, the vivid memoir, My Own Country. He honed his writing skills at the Iowa Writers' Workshop. He spent years as a physician and professor in Texas before moving to Stanford, where he has been a provostial professor of medicine since 2007. In an era when technology is ascendant, he is renowned as a physician who embraces and elevates the human aspects of medicine. He urges a focus on the patient as a person, not just a set of test results or an image on a screen. He founded Stanford Medicine 25, a program that cultivates bedside exam skills, teaching that the essence of the diagnosis and healing lies in the hands-on approach. He also founded Presence, an interdisciplinary initiative to strengthen the human dimension in medical care. His accomplishments as a physician and a professor alone would make for a storied career. But his career is also storied in another sense. He wrote a second memoir, The Tennis Partner, telling the moving story of a close friend's struggles with drug addiction. And he has written 2 epic novels, both acclaimed bestsellers. Cutting for Stone follows a physician's journey from Ethiopia to America. The book, said one reviewer, is all about the giant things: family, love, war, home, land, life, death, exile, brotherhood, betrayal, and faith. These big things come to life through tiny, intimate, emotional moments that drive to the heart of all that we find most impossible to describe. His second novel, The Covenant of Water, unfolds the saga of a family in southwest India as they contend with an unsettling mystery. In each generation, at least one member has unexpectedly drowned. A reviewer called the book a magnificent feat, praising its crisp-taut pacing and the compassion that infuses every page. Our guest is the rare physician to have been honored with the National Humanities Medal, recognizing his efforts to emphasize empathy in medicine, as well as his imaginative renderings of the human drama. We honor and welcome Dr. Abraham Verghese.
an embodiment of empathy in the wards and through his words. He exalts the sacred covenant between doctors and their patients and crafts compelling stories that bespeak his deep compassion. Abraham Verghese, Doctor of Humane Letters. In the name of this Society of Scholars, I declare that these persons are entitled to the rights and privileges pertaining to their several degrees, and that their names are to be forever borne on its roll of honorary members. It is now my privilege to invite one of our honored guests to address this assembly. Graduates, family members, colleagues, friends, let us welcome Dr. Abraham Verghese.
President Garber, members of the Harvard Corporation and the Board of Overseers, faculty, fellow honorands, and most of all, new graduates. Congratulations. What an incredibly gratifying moment this must be for you. And I know it's a very proud moment for your families. So how about we give a round of applause to your parents, your friends, your siblings, everyone who's here. I don't have to tell you that this is also an unprecedented moment for Harvard University. In this institution's almost 4-century existence, there has probably never been more attention focused on you than in these last few months, weeks, days. Honestly, in coming to your campus, I feel very much like a medieval messenger who had to sneak through the encircling forces and slip into your besieged community. So first, I bring you my felicitations to the graduates. No recent events can diminish what each of you has accomplished here. Graduates, I also want you to know you have the admiration and the good wishes of so many beyond Harvard. More people than you realize. More people than you realize are grateful More people than you realize are grateful to Harvard for the example it has set. By your willingness to look inward, to make painful and necessary changes, but then ultimately by your clarity in affirming and courageously defending the essential values of this university and indeed of this nation. A cascade of draconian government measures has already led to so much uncertainty, so much pain and suffering in this country and across the globe, and more has been threatened. The outrage you must feel, the outrage so many feel, also must surely lead us to a new appreciation. Appreciation for the rule of law and due process, which till now appreciation for the rule of law and due process, which till now we took for granted because this is America after all, and appreciation for those committed to truth, veritas, at a time when the absence of truth has come to feel almost normal. We find new appreciation of actions that demonstrate thoughtfulness, decency, generosity, kindness, humility, and service to community. I'm not Catholic, but I was so moved and inspired, as I'm sure many of you were, to hear those very qualities, humility, generosity, used repeatedly in describing the character of an American and Peruvian citizen, Robert Francis Prevost. The portrayal of this American, now Pope Leo XIV, the spiritual leader of 1.4 billion people, felt like a light after a dark stretch of time. Speaking about Catholicism, may I make a confession? When President Garber invited me to speak here, I was honored, of course, but I asked for some time to think about it because, believe me, I was well aware of the distinguished individuals who have spoken at this ceremony before. I felt you deserved to hear from a star or a Nobel Prize winner, or perhaps, God knows, from the Pope himself. Maybe next year, President Garber. But what made me eventually say yes to President Garber had everything to do with where we all find ourselves in 2025. When legal immigrants and others who are lawfully in this country, including so many of your international students, worry about being wrongly detained and even deported, perhaps it's fitting that you hear from an immigrant like me. Thank you. Perhaps it's fitting that you hear from someone who was born in Ethiopia when it was ruled by an emperor, someone who then lived under the harsh military leader who overthrew the emperor, someone who had at least one of his medical school classmates tortured and disappear, and who saw many other of his medical school classmates become guerrilla fighters fighting against the military dictator. Perhaps it's not so bad that you hear from someone like me who eventually completed his medical training in India just when Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, after facing Supreme Court judgments that she didn't care for, declared a national emergency and jailed thousands of students and all her opponents. When, in time, she called for an election, citizens in the world's largest democracy expressed their outrage by voting. She was ousted. It is perhaps also fitting that you should hear from someone who never had a prayer of coming to Harvard or an American university of this caliber for my education. Yet, I want to tell you, I had an excellent education in America all the same. I can bear witness to the dedicated efforts of professors, teachers at colleges, medical schools across this country, county and rural hospitals, veterans hospitals where I've worked, places you may not have heard of, but where nevertheless great patient care is delivered by physicians, many of whom are like me, trained outside of America. We were recruited here because American medical schools simply don't graduate sufficient numbers of physicians to fill the country's need. More than a quarter of the physicians in this country are foreign medical graduates. And many of those foreign physicians ultimately settle in places that others might not find as desirable. So a part of what makes America great, if I may use that phrase, is that it allows an immigrant like me to blossom here, just as generations of other immigrants and their children have flourished and contributed in every walk of life, working to keep America great. America also allowed this immigrant to find his voice as a writer. To quote the late novelist E.L. Doctorow, someone I admire and I got to know, he wrote, "It is the immigrant hordes who keep this country alive, the waves of them arriving year after year. Who believes in America more than the people who run down the gangplank and kiss the ground?" The greatness of America, the greatness of Harvard, is reflected in the fact that someone like me could be invited to speak to you. So thank you, Harvard. Thank you, President Garber. I am honored to be addressing you. As a child growing up in Ethiopia, without television until my teens, my notion of America came from the many extraordinary Americans who served in the Peace Corps. Those individuals left an impression of a country that was decent, generous, compassionate, not just to its own citizens, but to other nations. A more nuanced picture of America came from reading Ralph Ellison, Willa Cather, John Steinbeck, Hemingway, Mark Twain, and so many others in books that I checked out from the United States Information Services Library or the John F. Kennedy Library at my university in Addis Ababa. The novels conveyed a sense of an America that was far from perfect, but yet it seemed to me a nation striving to be so, striving to live up to the ideals expressed in its founding documents. Novels can teach you powerful lessons about life in a way that's very different from movies, because a novel is a collaborative venture. The writer provides the words, the reader provides their imagination, and somewhere in middle space, this fictional dream, this mental movie is created, and it's quite unique to each reader. In fact, my calling to medicine as a young teen came because of one novel, Of Human Bondage by Somerset Maugham, though the novel might not speak that way to anybody else. To paraphrase Camus, fiction is the great lie that tells the truth about how the world lives. When a novel speaks to you, it's because it rings true. The idea that now in America, a book that might speak to a young reader, reveal his or her calling, could be banned from their library by a school board or by government decree is beyond tragic. I know we will find our way back to displaying those attributes of America I admired from afar, the America I have known and loved from over 4 decades of being here, And it depends on all of you. Graduates, the commencement ritual obliges me to offer advice. Even though in 40 years of being a professor, attending every graduation, I can remember very few things that were said. Nevertheless, it's just part of the ritual, and so I already snuck in one piece of advice, I don't know if you noticed, and that is to read novels. It's a trait of some of the best physicians and some of the best university leaders that I've met, including your president. I mean, your university president. An avid reader. And if you don't read fiction, my considered medical opinion is that a part of your brain responsible for active imagination atrophies. But that aside, I want to leave you with two other pieces of advice. By the way, I'm serious about that. Read fiction. I want to leave you with two other pieces of advice. One has to do with decisions, and the other with time. First, let me tell you about decisions. There's a writing dictum or aphorism that I just love about how to create a fictional character on the page. And it goes like this. Character is determined by decisions taken under pressure. A character is determined by decisions taken under pressure. You can build a fictional character by describing their appearance, their manner of speaking, their dress, etc. But the moment a character really leaps off the page is when you put them under pressure and they're forced to make a decision. Indeed, when one of my characters makes a decision that isn't one that I picked for them at a moment of crisis, they're usually right. And with that, they suddenly take on human flesh. They become incarnate. So I repeat, character is determined by decisions taken under pressure. And I wanted to share an anecdote that I think epitomizes for me this link between decisions and character. In 1974, in my third year of medical school in Ethiopia, my clinical year, the military overthrew the Emperor Haile Selassie. One of the first acts of the military leader, who became known as the Stalin of Africa, one of his first acts was to close the university and send the students to the countryside to educate the masses. This is almost a reflex of so-called strong men to attack the places where truth and reason prevail. As an expatriate, I had little choice but to leave. Among my medical school classmates who at that point went underground to join the guerrilla forces fighting against the Stalin of Africa was a brilliant student named Meles Zenawi. I have yet to meet a student as brilliant as Meles. Meles obviously gave up his career path to medicine, became a guerrilla fighter, rose to become the leader of the rebel group, fighting for 17 years until his troops finally succeeded in displacing the military dictator. He became prime minister for 3 terms, and to quote President Clinton, speaking about him, he was a new generation of African leader. One might disagree with many of his decisions, but in the village where Meles grew up, you cannot tell his mother's hut from the hut next to it. He never did anything to enrich himself. I returned to Ethiopia for the first time 2 decades after I left on a magazine assignment to interview the new Prime Minister, Meles. We sat in his very modest Prime Minister's office, a far cry from the gilded palace of his 2 predecessors, and we caught up. He talked about the tough decisions he had to make every day in a country that was ethnically divided, impoverished by a long civil war, and with the treasury looted by the former dictator. He shared with me something that I'll never forget. He said, during the long years of the guerrilla war, his forces could only move freely at night, but they had to cross fields sowed with Cuban and Russian mines. They would be forced to ask for a volunteer from among them, from among their own, to walk through the minefield to try and find a safe crossing. And so he said to me, in this office, I try to make sure that every decision I make is worthy of those comrades who gave their lives crossing those minefields so we could get to safety. On the walls of Harvard Memorial Church are inscribed the names of students and faculty who gave their lives in various conflicts. It will take many, many more walls to honor Harvard alumni and faculty who've served this nation in every discipline, not just the military, and who have done so in brave, exemplary, and transformative ways. In the past few weeks, in the face of immense pressure, Harvard, under President Garber's steady leadership, has been very visible for taking decisions worthy of your university's heritage, decisions that reveal and will shape this university's character. Graduates, the decisions you make in the future, when under pressure, will say something about your character, while they will also shape and transform you in unexpected ways. Make your decisions worthy of those who supported, nurtured, and sacrificed for you. Your parents, your partners, your family, your ancestors. Make the decisions worthy of this great university and the hardship it must endure going forward as it works to preserve the value of what you accomplished here. The second piece of advice I want to convey has to do with time. I trained in my specialty of infectious diseases here at the old Boston City Hospital, now the Boston Medical Center. I was here from 1983 to 85, just as AIDS, a disease of unknown cause, was appearing in large American cities, in our hospital wards, very much so in Boston City Hospital, elsewhere. And yet only at the end of 2 years of training was the cause of AIDS discovered, a virus we now call HIV. Just as I was moving to a small town in Tennessee, population 50,000, moving to a young medical school. Since AIDS was considered to be largely an urban condition, an urban disease, I was shocked in that small town to soon be seeing many more patients with HIV than anyone predicted for a population that size. The explanation for this, for these high numbers, turned out to be true of many other small towns in America. My patients were mostly gay men in their 30s and 40s, around my age at the time, and they were hometown boys who had left the town often after high school, just as so many had left in pursuit of jobs, education. But they were also leaving because they were gay and didn't want to live that lifestyle under the close scrutiny of their relatives and friends in the town. They settled in the big cities, found themselves, but tragically, years and decades into their stay, the virus found them. and they were now returning to their hometowns, to their families, typically because their partners had died and now they were getting ill. Given the prevailing sentiments against gay people in small towns in the rural South, I found myself pleasantly surprised to find my patients were so well received by their families. They were cared for lovingly to the end. You see, love trumps all bigotry. Love trumps ideology. When it's your child, when it's your family member who's affected, all that stuff just flies out the window. Now, effective treatment for HIV was still some years away, and so for me personally as a physician, it was heartbreaking to get to know these young men primarily so well and watch them gradually decline and die. These brave men taught me so much about quiet courage and about manhood, not the caricature of manliness, the posturing that has become so fashionable lately. They taught me, most importantly, about the value of time. You see, in their last days, they often wrestled with one question: what has been the meaning of my life? And thankfully, most of them, when they asked that question, what has been the meaning of my compressed life, most of them found the answer, and the answers were similar. They found that meaning at the end of their life, at the end of a shortened life, did not reside in fame, power, reputation, acquisitions, good looks. Instead, they found that meaning in their lives ultimately resided in the successful relationships that they had forged in a lifetime, particularly with parents, particularly with your family. Now, when my own country, my first book describing this small-town AIDS paradigm of migration came out, a reader, a mother whose son had just succumbed to AIDS, wrote to me, and she shared with me a letter that her son had written before he died and arranged for his mother to get a month after he died, when he hoped that her acute grief would have subsided. She gave me permission to use it, and I have used it unapologetically in other forms, but perhaps none as important as today, because his message bears repeating. It's also fitting that this advice that you're about to hear about time should come from someone beyond time. It should come not from me, but from those we all serve, and from someone who died when he was closer to your age than my age now. So here goes, a letter from son to mother. Dear Mom, this last part of my life could have been very unpleasant, but it wasn't. In fact, in many ways, this has been the best part of my life. I've got to know my family again, a chance that very few people have or take advantage of. I enjoyed a life full of adventure and travel, and I loved every moment of it, but I probably never would have slowed down enough to really appreciate all of you if it hadn't been for my illness. That's the silver lining in this very dark cloud. I've had so full and satisfying a life that it seems almost tacky for me to express any regrets. Nevertheless, there are some things I wish I could have done. Number one, I'd love to have been mayor of Key West. And then he goes on with a laundry list of things I'm not going to read to you. I'll skip that, and he says, but when you get right down to it, Mother, I would have to live several hundred years to fulfill all the dreams I've had. I've done pretty well with the time allotted to me, and so I have no regrets. I feel sorry for people who die at whatever age, who haven't had the chance in life to fulfill some of their dreams. That's the real tragedy. Mom, if anyone ever asks you if I went to heaven, tell them this: I just came from there. No place could conceivably be as wonderful as where I've spent these last 30 years. I'll miss it. I'll miss you, Mother. I'm so glad we made good use of this time to get to know each other again. Graduates, you received and participated in an extraordinary education here at Harvard. As alumni, be its strength, be its support. Cherish this special day. And above all, make good use of your time. I wish you the very best.
Thank you, Dr. Verghese, for your inspiring words and for the privilege of your presence here today. Please rise as the commencement choir leads us in the singing of Fair Harvard. Please remain standing as the Pusey minister pronounces the benediction. The commencement exercises then being ended, the Sheriff of Middlesex County will declare the meeting adjourned. The audience is requested to remain in place until the platform party has recessed.
It is my privilege now to conclude our exercises with a blessing. In its ancient roots, blessing does not confer goodness, it honors it. Blessing does not make something good, it acknowledges what is already good. A blessing is not a spell of protection, it is an act of recognition. In its medieval roots, meanwhile, the word blessing carries a sense of woundedness. To be blessed means you have endured trials with courage, you have survived injury with integrity. Blessing honors you for who you are. It also bends its knee before all you have been through. Harvard class of 2025, you have been through so much. You have come to us from around the globe, and you have been through so much together. You have been through strife and grief and estrangement and uncertainty and upheaval, but you have also done so much good for us, so much good for one another, so much good for the world. No one is perfect, not even at Harvard, and not even you. But if Harvard accomplishes good for the world, it's because you do. If Harvard is great, it's because you are. It's because of you. Because you are a blessing. So on behalf of everyone who loves you, those crowding this Terracentenary Theater, and those who weren't able to travel or weren't able to get tickets onto the yard, let me now say, on all their behalf, bless you. Bless you for what you have been to one another and to us. Bless you for the good you have done for one another and for us. Now, I might stop there, but I can't, because you can't stop here either. The truth is, there is still so much good you need to do. The truth is, there are still so many trials you must face. The truth is, the world still needs your blessings, now more than ever. The world needs you. So I also bless you for all the good that you will do after you have left this yard. I also bless you for who you will become once you have passed outside these gates. You are a sight to behold. But beyond this yard, we on this stage see other things. We see a range of threats and dangers to our world, to this university, to many of you, to many of us. But between all of that and all of this, we see you. Between all of that and all of this, we see the good that you have done, and we see the good that you will do. Between all of that and all of this, we see who you have been, and we also see who you will become. Between all of that and all of this, we see you, and we've seen what you can do. Now go and do it. Harvard class of 2025, go in peace with all of our blessings. Amen.
As the High Sheriff of Middlesex County, I declare that the meeting will be adjourned.